Manchester United have just had their worst season in 50 years. 18 losses, 15th place, chaos on and off the pitch. Whilst the on-field Manchester United was in absolute turmoil, off the field, Omar Berrada was quietly building something, a long-term plan for Manchester United. So what is that plan? What is Manchester United going to look like over the next few years? Not just short term, not just this summer, but what is Omar Berrada's plan for Manchester United to get back to the very top? In a recent interview with Andy Mitten, he's laid out exactly how Manchester United are going to do it. At the heart of it is Project 150, something many of you will have heard of, with a simple goal: win the Premier League by 2028. But how are we going to get there? So let's look at Omar Berrada, who he is, what he is bringing to Manchester United, and why, despite all of the chaos, the layoffs, the losses, and the disruption on and off the pitch, there might just be someone pulling things together and moving Manchester United into a direction that we can finally recognise as Manchester United. Big aims, big goals, and an attempt to sustain success. Before we look at Omar Berrada and who he is, first of all, let's look at Project 150. What is it? Fundamentally, it is the 150th anniversary of Manchester United coming up in 2028. That has been the goal internally for when Manchester United will get back to the top. That's what they're saying. That's what Omar Berrada and his team think is a reasonable goal for Manchester United. Is it reasonable? Is it feasible that United can go from finishing 15th in 2025 to finishing first in 2028? Well, they've got a plan, they've got an idea, and we're going to have a look at exactly how they plan to do that. First of all, let's look at Omar Berrada. Who is he? So Berrada has a long history in football, which immediately separates him from some of United's recent CEOs. He's not someone that's literally a banker getting his first job in football, and it happens to be one of the biggest jobs at Manchester United. He has been working in and around football for over 20 years. He studied business in Barcelona and ended up staying there for 15 years. And in 2004, he got his first job at Barcelona Football Club. His initial role was to head up the digital development side of things. And you think back 20 years, that was a relatively new industry that he was going into. From there, he started working for Barca TV with the aim of monetizing the channel. And then from there, he went on to work as the head of sponsorships for Barcelona. And in 2011, he was headhunted by Manchester City. And I think this is the point where United fans kind of are a little bit more familiar with his journey. He worked a long time at Manchester City, and we all know 2011 until 2024 was a pretty successful time for Manchester City. As much as it pains us to say it, there's no point denying it. It was the most successful time in Manchester City's history by an absolute mile. In 2016, he became the Chief Operating Officer at Manchester City. Before that, he had worked in international commercial development. And that's where he really made his name. His relationship with Cheeky Begiristan was one that was well documented. They both trusted and relied on each other to work out the plan for Manchester City going forward. Again, we all know why Manchester City have won those titles. We all know that it wouldn't have happened without the new owners, without the investment, whether that was dodgy or not. We're still finding out. We do know for sure, though, that those things still have to be guided. Money for money's sake doesn't just equal success. There was clearly people behind the scenes at Manchester City that knew what they were doing, and Omar Berrada was one of them. So when he finally took that CEO job at Manchester United in 2024, he had essentially fulfilled that potential. It's one of the biggest roles in any football club in the world. He is at the centre of the spokes at Manchester United. You've got the footballing side on one hand with Jason Wilcox, you've got Christopher Vivell, you've got the scouting team, you've got the negotiation team, you've got the manager, Amorim, and his playing staff. Then he's still in contact and he works very, very closely with the commercial side of things. He also works very closely with the owners, the board members, the directors at Manchester United. He is the one that brings everything together at Manchester United Football Club. And his first major task when he came in last year was deciding on a new manager. After Erik ten Hag had been sacked, the search was on for a new manager. At the time, Dan Ashworth, the then sporting director, wanted to go for a more Premier League proven approach. Names like Thomas Frank had been mentioned. But Omar Berrada specifically saw things differently. He liked Ruben Amorim, and this was the first major decision that was made between him, Jason Wilcox, and the team above those guys. This was going to be their new man, and this all ties in to Project 150. Because no longer would United go for a Jose Mourinho style manager, a Thomas Tuchel style manager, who, yes, over the next 18 months to 24 months, you may well find some success, you may well have a couple of trophies, but in 3 or 4 years, there is almost zero chance they will still be at your football club. Jose Mourinho has never been at a football club for that amount of time. Manchester United needed a manager that was going to take us forward and potentially, and of course this is not guaranteed to happen by any means, but at least had the potential to be here for 4, 5, 10, 15 years. With a character and a temperament like a Jose, or like a Louis van Gaal, or like a Thomas Tuchel, that's just almost impossible. They just rub up against people the wrong way too often in their careers for you to ever have that long-term stability with that type of manager. And United aren't in a position to do that. We aren't just a top-up and a couple of ageing transfers away from winning one last Premier League. Man United need to rebuild from the ground up, and if Project 150 is going to work, that is how United need to do it. We need long-term on and off the pitch. And this was a crucial part of this interview with Andy Mitten. Omar Berrada said himself, had Ruben started on July the 1st, we wouldn't have been able to get all that knowledge. The worst is behind us. And the knowledge that he's talking about there is what needs doing this summer. And this is obviously a massive task ahead for him, for the transfers team. But knowing who needs to leave, knowing who needs to come in, United have almost brought that forward by 12 months. Yes, in the short term, it was disastrous on the pitch. Horrendous. The worst we've ever seen. The worst I've ever seen. I couldn't even imagine United finishing 15th. But if we are to look at the positives and the bright side, there's no hiding things now. No one's hiding off in the corner. No one's pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. Man United has been laid bare. Who works, who doesn't, who we need to replace, and who we can rely on. I do think that there is something in that. And if the goal is always this long-term thing anyway, if the goal was get back to the top by 2028, then there's no point papering over the cracks anymore. There's no point getting that 35-year-old striker, or giving him one more season because we're not sure about him, or letting these voices, these dissenting voices in the dressing room rear their head every season, every 6 months. When things aren't going well, they make things worse. We can see that for what it is now. We've already seen Ruben Amorim has got rid of Antony. He's kept Sancho out the squad, something that Ten Hag started. Marcus Rashford has fallen out of favour. Garnacho is another one that will be leaving Manchester United this summer if a buyer is found. Omar Berrada has hinted at that. We wouldn't have had all of that knowledge. This summer and this season may have been a disaster, and it has been a disaster, but at least it allows us to see the club and the squad for what it really is. So how does this play out in the transfer window? This is a crucial part of all of this. What is Omar Berrada's plan and Manchester United's plan in the window? And how is it different from what we've seen over the last 10 years? I already mentioned before, look at some of the names that United have signed in the last decade. Cristiano Ronaldo, mid-30s. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, mid-30s. Edinson Cavani, early to mid-30s when we signed him. Odi Nagalo, 30. Casemiro, 29 when we signed him with a 4-year deal. Christian Eriksen, 30 when we signed him. These are all players that in their peak are fantastic players, but we're never going to take Manchester United to the next level. There was always too many weaknesses, too many errors and problems in the squad that meant we were never just one player away from winning the league or challenging Man City, especially with how good and how many points they've been racking up over the last decade. Man United need to think again in this transfer window and re-look at how they do everything top to bottom. The first signing of this window has been Matheus Cunha, and Omar Berrada described him as having swagger, confidence, dare I say it, Cantona-esque. He's a younger profile, he's in his mid-20s, not his late 20s or early 30s. It's a transfer that's cost 60 million, which again is a lot of money, but it's not the 70s, 80s and 90s that we've seen on big names or not so big names over the last decade or so. The likes of Paul Pogba, Jadon Sancho, Antony have all cost over £70 million. Matheus Cunha is a guy that is Premier League proven, coming in for between 10 and 30 million euros less than any of those players. And that hopefully will be the model going forward. Have you done it before at this level? And if you haven't, we aren't going to be paying 80, 90 million. The amount of pressure that puts on players, we've seen it with the likes of Harry Maguire, who was Premier League proven, but we just spent too much on him. Paul Pogba, we spent too much on him. Antony, that's a different case. We clearly spent too much on him, and he wasn't Premier League proven, and he wasn't good enough. But United have to be more sensible, and that seems like the case at the moment. The other side of things is the wage bill, and this again is an absolutely crucial part of Manchester United being a healthy club going forward. We've already saved around £50 million on wages in the last 12 months, the likes of Eriksen, the likes of Marcus Rashford, who a decent chunk of his wages was paid by Aston Villa, the same for Jadon Sancho at Chelsea, and now we're looking at getting those players off the books entirely. This is a big difference. Again, Victor Lindelof has left the club, and if you go back even 2 or 3 years pre-Berrada, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo was here on £500,000. We saw a similar amount for Rafael Varane. David De Gea was on £300,000+. Predating Omar Berrada, but also continued under his reign, Manchester United have massively cut down on the wage structure that was getting out of hand in around the 21-22 season. United now can go to a player, even a £50-60 million player, and say, you are not getting £200,000. It will be less than that. Or if you are a top player and someone that we know will improve us straight away, maybe it'll be in the 200s. The years of 300,000+, 400,000+ a week on players, I think that's gone. And I think a huge part of that is Omar Berrada. Look at the way Man City did things. They bought in players at that 40, 50 and 60 million pound mark. They had a team at one stage that was basically a 50 million pound player in every position. It'd be John Stones, Kyle Walker, Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, Sterling, Mahrez. All of these players cost between 40 and 60 million pounds. It's a lot of money, and you end up spending, £750 million on a team. But not any individual one of those players is expected to win you the game every week. There's no, go on then Paul Pogba, fix it for us. Go on then Cristiano Ronaldo, fix it for us. It doesn't work like that. Things have to be a little bit more spread out so that you have a very good player in every position rather than subpar players in 3 of the 11 positions, decent players in 5 positions, and then top players in 3. United need to raise the floor of the squad, and those 40, 50 and 60 million pound signings are the best way to do that. So can Manchester United win the Premier League in 3 years' time? That's the final question in all of this. Obviously, we don't know. Fundamentally, the future is unknown to all of us. But what is for sure is that I think 3 years is enough time. I do think if we get this right, 3 years makes sense. Because people say, no, it's too soon, it can't happen. Well, when would you say then? 5 years? 6 years? If you sign someone this summer, in 6 years' time, that contract has run out. How many players do United even have from 6 years ago? Not many. Luke Shaw, is that it? Bruno Fernandes, maybe? I think that was 5 years ago. So this idea that it's going to take 6 years, if you get the players right, if you buy 3 good players in the summer, 1 in the winter, 3 in the summer, 1 in the winter, 3 times, that's 12 players. If 10 of them are the right guys, and you've still got Bruno from this squad, you've still got Eleni Yoro, you've still got some of the youngsters that will be brilliant for many years to come, there's no reason why in 3 years' time, if you start working properly in the transfer market, you should have an entirely new first 11 that if they, like I said, if you bought the right players, what more do you need than an entirely new first 11? That's the thing with Manchester United. It's never as far away as you think. When Roman Abramovich came in at Chelsea, 18 months later, they won the league. When City had their takeover, I think it was 4 years later, they won the league. But they were starting at a much lower place than we are. I know our league position sort of belies that a little bit, but Manchester United are a much bigger entity, find it much easier to attract top players than Man City did in 2008. If we get this right, there's no reason it should take more than 3 or 4 years. And again, you can't guarantee you're going to win trophies. If City put up 100 points in 2028, you're going to struggle. But Manchester United should be challenging 80+ points every single season. And if we can do that, then that would be an absolutely monumental achievement. And I think we'd all be patting Omar Berrada on the back. Let me know your thoughts on Omar Berrada, on this interview with Andy Mint. We'll put the link to that in the description. Fantastic interview, reiterating a lot of Manchester United's plans for the summer and for the next few years. And it finally feels like for once, it's not just who can we get this summer? How can we win some trophies next season? We're looking at Manchester United as a team for the future. How can we get to the top and stay at the top? Get your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Stretford Paddock. See you in a bit.